Hello, animation fans, and welcome to another iAnimate podcast. I'm your host, Larry Vasquez, and you're listening to episode 84. In this episode, we have Roy Stein joining us. Roy is one of our feature alumni, and he's been animating as a lead animator for many studios here, Cinesite, Braun, L'Atelier. He's worked as an animator over at Blue Sky Studio, Mikros, and has had the opportunity to work on such films as Little Prince, The Willoughbys, and Ferdinand. It was a really neat opportunity to get Roy in here. One being one of our alumni, it's always neat to catch up with where our students have been, and as well as hearing from his experience kind of growing up in the animation industry. He has also produced one of his own shorts, which was really, really cool, called Too Late. It was neat to see the cast list on that, some of our other alumni joining him on that. And so this just made for a really cool podcast to catch up with one of our alumni students, see what they've been doing in the industry, as well as their learning curve here. So definitely check this one out. All right, let's jump into it.
Right.
All right, Roy. Well, thank you so much for joining us in this podcast. It's a real treat to have you in here. Again, looking at your LinkedIn resume there, you've got a really cool resume from studios you've worked on or at and projects you've worked on, as well as being one of our alumni. So that's always a neat treat to get one of our iAnimate alumni in on these podcasts as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, let's I always like go back to how things kind of got started, what genesis for you for animation. I think it's always just kind of intriguing. I kind of bring this example up sometimes, our head of animation, Jason Ryan, who's been in the industry for decades now, at one time was going to be an accountant. So I always think it's kind of funny where people kind of came from. So I'd like to hear the backstory. How did you get into animation?
Well, I got into animation a little bit later. It was a bit of a roundabout way to really kind of click in. I always drew, so I always knew that, I'm going to somehow find a way to get paid for, doing art. But animation as a profession was not something that I was aware that really existed for me. Growing up in Israel, the industry was just not there. It was more of a bespoke, custom, stop motion and 2D, but not a very, very small industry. So to me, it was mostly about trying to do my best to kind of find a way to get a degree in something that's resembling art, and then try and find a gig. So I studied something called visual communication at the Academy of Art in Israel in Betzalel. And that's basically a mishmash of a lot of different things. It's just like art direction, illustration, photography, and typography. You kind of learn a little bit about a lot of things.
Gotcha.
And then at the end of it, or I should say junior year, so the third year, I got a chance to go to the States. And it was this exchange student program at MICA in Maryland. And over there, I was able to focus really on illustration, which I thought that would be my ideal trajectory, just doing like children's books or, general, more journalistic type illustration. But one of the classes that I took was also introduction to 3D animation.
Very cool.
And that really opened my eyes, because at the time, this is a long time ago. This is like 2003. And this was like just intro to 3D Max. It was not really anything animated. It was basically learning how to texture, how to model, how to light, all those super basic concepts of kind of training your brain to what 3D is really. And it was mind-blowing, because it gave me this other cool way to create things. So I brought this back home with me, and that led me to basically go into a generalist mode.
There in Israel?
In Israel, doing commercials. And basically, I had to do everything, which is, model, rig, animate, light, whatever. Everything to a very mediocre level. But with a turnaround time of commercials, you have to. So it taught me a lot, but at the end of the day, it was not as satisfying as I'd liked it to be. My heart was still with animation. So after a good few years of doing that, I met this friend who worked with me back in London. I was already working in London at the time in the UK, and he said there's this school called iAnimate that just opened up, and you should take a look and think about it, because I told him that really wanted to focus more on character animation and performance, and I really didn't know how to channel that into sustaining some sort of workability, because I was working at the time, and I was doing okay. I was doing well for myself in commercials, but my heart was just not in it. So I got in touch with Jason Ryan. This was beginning of 2011, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I was block 3.
Okay. So I was gonna say, yeah, 2010 is when we opened up, but that was probably the fall. So then you probably would have had maybe a winter. Maybe that would have probably been like the spring then, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It was May
Of
of
2011.
2011.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So that was so much fun and so challenging, because I was still in the UK, and all my instructors were on the West Coast.
So, so you're one of the hardcore dedicated ones that were having to get up early, huh?
I had to be. It was basically either you get up in the middle of the night no matter what. The question is whether you go back to sleep after or not. And in most cases, it was I felt so inspired, with adrenaline and learning the stuff that you wanted to do, that you couldn't go back to sleep. And destroyed at work throughout the day. So that was interesting. That was an interesting year.
Very funny. So who were some of your instructors, just out of curiosity?
My first instructor was Mike Walling.
All right. That was my first instructor too.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Yes. And then I went through a couple of workshops with Ken.
I had Ken Fountain too. Yep. He's fantastic.
Yeah. And Jacob Gardner was one of my instructors. And then my final instructor was Ted.
Okay. Yeah.
But when I took his class, I was already moving to Canada. So I got an offer based on my my reel, but I was still at iAnimate, was still taking classes. I was given an offer to come to Toronto to work in visual effects as an animator. This was a big move for me, because it was, first of all, another step away from commercials, but also just focus on animation. So it was great. It was really cool to be able to just not rig and model and comp for a bit, and just focus on this and see how it goes. So while I was doing the second part of, was it workshop 7, I think, or 6, I forget, with Ted, which was the last workshop.
Yeah.
I was also kind of moving continents and starting a new gig, and so it was really challenging, but I got to work on 3 or 4 VFX shows, which again, in the language of feature animation, it's really weird, because I was there for 10 months before I moved on to the next gig, and in 10 months I worked on 4 films.
Wow.
So that's kind of the VFX, fast kind of.
Very fast paced. Yeah. Now, what were some of the projects you worked on there?
There were a bunch of reboots. So we did the reboot for Carrie, which is the horror film from the 70s. And then reboot for RoboCop.
Okay.
And then there was like this disaster movie called Pompeii, and something of a kind of a monster teen film that was in the vicinity of Twilight, but more gory. It didn't really take off, but it was based on another kind of series of books. So same idea. So lots of monsters and weird things and magic and stuff like that.
Very cool.
So got to animate a bunch of different things, from robots to monsters and stuff. But to me, my heart was like, I want to do dialogue. I want to do performance.
Right.
I want to do feature animation. So as I finished the final workshop with Ted, I just wanted to keep doing or making animated clips that were performance based. And I heard about this 11-second club thing, so I decided to do a couple of those, which were really, really fun. And I got an offer to move to Montreal. So I moved again, and this time to Mikros to work on a film they made called Mune, the Guardian of the Moon.
Right, right.
Which not a lot of people know about.
I know about it. I haven't had a chance to see it. My kiddos had seen it and liked it, but I knew you worked on it. And then a couple of other of our students, Amanda and Boris.
Yeah, I think Boris for sure. I can't remember if Amanda worked on it.
Okay.
Maybe. We're
Gotcha. I couldn't quite remember, but yeah, I knew a few of you guys had worked on that. It looked great. But that also led into their next feature, right? Which is
right. So Mune was great as kind of a training wheels and being able to do performance shots with dialogue finally in production and getting paid for it, which is like finally what I wanted to do.
Hit the ground now, huh?
So that was great because I got a bunch of different characters, a bunch of different situations. You have more physicality, more subtle stuff, and everything in between. Some comedic moments, so you can get a bit more cartoony with cartoony characters. It was really a varied film in that regard. Yeah. When I heard that Little Prince is going on in the background, I was like, I have to be
amazing. I love that one. Yeah. Real quick, because I want to go into Little Prince, but one of the things that we try to do here at iAnimate is mimic kind of that dailies and environment type feel. What were some of the things that when you went into your first feature one with Mune, that helped prepare you from iAnimate, and what were some of the things that were still surprising for you being there?
I think taking the last workshop with Ted was very useful in terms of maintaining structure. I think the way he, at the time, I don't know if he still does it that way, he really maintained showing things in a proper blocking, spline, polish manner. And that's something that I really took to heart and maintained throughout the first year of actually working on a feature. And it helped because there were a bunch of people on the show that were working that way, and it kind of clicked in. In a way, I kind of slipped in through the cracks for Mune because it was my first gig, but I somehow came in as a mid, so I was given better shots.
Okay.
Right, I didn't get the idea until a while into the film, but it was good for me. It was really kind of pushing.
Did you feel that challenge initially, or is that something that you felt kind of comfortable with? But
it wasn't comfortable at all. It was the bar was high for me. Not doing this professionally before, just following robots and crazy monsters and stuff. The only performance-based stuff that I knew was from the 11-second club stuff that I did and everything I did at iAnimate.
Right.
But then when somebody pays you for it, it kind of changes the whole thing, and you feel like you're obligated to, really do a good job and be a professional, and the schedule is different and everything else. So that's something that I really took from iAnimate, because again, the structure and having to, no matter where you are, if comes time to submit something for class, it needs to be the best thing they can do.
Very cool.
It doesn't matter if you had a tough week or an easy week. It doesn't matter. It needs to be there. So that was great.
Very cool. Oh, that's great to hear. What were some of the other lifesavers as your first year in that production environment that helped you, particularly as you said, kind of hitting in a mid-level? What were some of the lifesavers that basically made you not turn around and quit and go, man, I'm not cut out for this? Or
I think the team. The team having, and that's again something that I remember from, I was very fortunate when I went through the school to have awesome people like name dropping Martin Smith to kind of bounce shots again, against and really talk about how we can push each other and make things better and that stayed the same in production. I just found a few people that I really trusted their opinion and the professional kind of manner they were carrying themselves, and bouncing shots and ideas against them, and seeing where I could put myself. And if you do that before you show your lead or before you show your soup, you know, you look good, because
Gotcha.
you get good feedback, and it's good for everybody. So that was something, again, that was very useful.
So Martin was on Mune as well?
No.
Okay. So someone you can kind of shoot back and examples from.
Yeah, it was the same principle of
Gotcha.
finding
Okay.
a nice person that you can communicate with and really
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
A support structure.
That's right. So that way you don't crack there, huh? You have someone with you.
It's hard. Some people don't really do that, and suffer in silence, and it's a shame, because it is a group effort. No matter how you look at it, every shot in feature film is going to have some sort of feedback from a lot of people, and you want that feedback early, because that's where it can really help the shot and make it easier for you.
It's a great way to look at it, for sure. Yeah. So from that project, then you went on to Little Prince. Did you guys have any idea that this was going to do as well, or at least received as well as it had been?
I didn't know, and you never know with film. And the more films I'm part of, the more I notice how crazy it is, and you can't foresee something succeeding or not, and how it's going to be received. But for Little Prince, I grew up with the book. So to me, it was a combination of knowing, Mark Osborne coming in from, Kung Fu Panda, and directing this amazing book that I grew up with. There was no way for me not to kind of fight to get onto it.
Gotcha.
Really kind of force myself, kind of squeeze myself into that production. And I'm absolutely lucky to have been part of it. It was a great experience.
That would seem like that would be a project that you, just felt like, lucky to be a part of, huh?
Right. It's one of those things that, to me at least, changed my almost perception about feature animation, because it was so early in my career. It really influenced how I see performance, based on how Mark was directing the film, and not having to move the character when the character doesn't need to move, and having that powerful power of projection that you can use for a character that's absolutely still. Valid lesson. Absolutely.
Very cool. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, not just moving something because it's animation, right? But removing it with purpose, or not in that case.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And the story was just so delicate and so human.
Yeah.
And again, how often do you see that in animated film?
Right.
It was yeah.
And it's been a while since I've seen that one, but that one had a multiple different looks too, if I remember correctly.
There was the CG part, which we were in charge of, and then the stop motion
right
were basically the throwbacks directly from the film, from the book, sorry. And that had a progression. So they started with very flat cutout type stop motion, and then as the film progressed, it became more and more three-dimensional.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah, it was just a lot of character in that film. And just kind of, again, like that unique style too, that I really just gravitated towards. It was really cute. So that was a book beforehand. I didn't know that. Yeah,
it's I think that the one of the most translated books in the world after the Bible.
Wow. And I'm actually now hanging my head in shame, since I said I didn't know it.
It's less known. So my surprise was coming from Israel. My surprise was it wasn't as well known in North America.
Okay, that makes me feel much better.
Absolutely, no, you're not alone. I think it was very popular in Europe.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it was written by Exupéry, he was French, but he lived in New York at the time. So there's a lot of different kind of feels connected to the book. But yeah, worth a read.
Very cool. I'll have to check that one out. Definitely. So now from that was at Mikros, right?
Mhm.
And from there, where did you head off to?
So after Little Prince, I got a phone call from my previous instructor, Ted
That's right, at L'Atelier, right?
Atelier, and he said that he's moving back home to Montreal. He was at DreamWorks at the time,
Uh-huh.
and he's going to supervise this film called Ballerina. And he asked if I wanted to be one of his leads. And I immediately told him that it's probably not a good idea because I don't have enough experience. But he had a lot of trust in me, and gave me the opportunity, and I'm very thankful for that. And it
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
great experience.
Now that's where you worked out with Martin, right?
That was the first time we professionally worked together.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. That's what I mean. Sorry. And some people you worked with on for your short, and we'll get into your short, but I noticed India was on that one as well, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Um, who else from that team that did you work on with for your short? Is there
Um,
anybody else?
there are people.
It's all kind of probably a
Tomorrow,
blur now,
yeah,
huh?
I'm gonna black out on a few.
No, understandable. The only reason why I ask is because I think Martin had put together some type of really cool video, and we've had Martin in on a podcast. Actually, it was with Ted Martin in India,
Mhm.
and maybe I'll put this in our show notes. And it was shortly after Ballerina / Leap, and
Right.
I love Martin. Martin's he's awesome. So he was a term after the second term, I think, and just an amazing guy. And so he put together a really cool video, I think, of your guys' time there. And it just looked like a really neat group of people that Ted had assembled or the team had assembled for this particular project. And so, as I said, it looked like a cool, unique team that now you worked with even later on
Right.
such stuff as your own short.
Absolutely. It was a very unique experience. For one, a lot of people that I worked with on Little Prince kind of came with me to work on Ballerina. So there was a lot of trust and a lot of camaraderie that we already had coming in. And then obviously the connection to Ted and the connection to iAnimate, and knowing people, some people from school, some people from working on previous films. It was almost like hitting the ground running in a way on a human level, which is super important. It's almost more important than the skills,
Right.
because then people tend to listen to each other more and give respect and be open to critique more, and it was just great. The film itself was very, very challenging because it was dance, and what do I know about dance? It was very challenging.
Now, one of the things I really loved about that film was, let me see how I can explain this, the high quality and fidelity of the project on a smaller budget compared to someone like a DreamWorks or a Pixar. And as you mentioned yourself, when he said, I want you as a lead, you said, hey, look, I don't know if that's a great idea. So a lot of you guys were fairly young-ish, so to speak.
Right.
Like you mentioned, you had some experience under your belt. You guys had done some feature, but still young.
Right.
And to see what you guys were able to do on that project with a smaller budget, a more green team, was just really phenomenal. It looked fantastic. Was there anything that you felt during your time there that either as a team or Ted or the company was able to really pull out all the juices there, so to speak, to be able to get that high fidelity on the screen?
To reiterate, I really think it's the human connection. The
Gotcha.
fact that a lot of us were really close friends, and it showed on screen.
Gotcha.
It was a very small team, but very close knit team, and we always hanged out together. And it was
That's awesome.
It was great, and there was a lot of synergy while working on shots. A lot of people helping each other, so it was great. And most of us, if not all of us, were green, or at least doing this for the first time. Whatever title you had, that was probably your first title. Some having that film as a first film, some like myself, first time lead, and so forth. So in that regard, there was more humility. We're figuring it out as we go. And maybe that's what's coming through, but it's also there was great design for the show, great design characters, and writing was beautiful. And the best storyboards, or best looking storyboards I've ever seen.
Really?
For that film.
Do you
Yeah.
know who worked on the boards?
There were quite a few artists. I can't remember names,
Okay.
but if they ever make a book, you should probably.
Okay. That'd be one to check out for sure, huh?
Really nice. Yeah.
Now, how did that help you with the boards? Was it something that it had a lot of the planning already kind of really solidly worked out, or when you say that was beneficial, how did that work out for you?
Yes. So the boards are very specific, which always helps,
Okay.
but also inspiring. So to me, every time a department before your department does something above and beyond, it makes you really want to push yourself.
Very cool.
Right. So when you see boards that are really thought out, I always refer to the Jeff Darrow boards from The Matrix, right? They almost made The Matrix as a graphic novel. It's so amazing. So that type of level is always going to give the next department like a higher benchmark.
Okay, now we got it. Yeah. So they're higher up on that ladder. Now we have to supersede that, huh?
Right.
Gotcha.
In a way.
Yeah.
I think it's human nature, right? You see something really cool and you want to make, something as cool. So that was great.
Very neat. Now, how was it your time leading on that? Because you mentioned that was your first time. Anything particular that you kind of, again, we talked about earlier, going into the podcast, any light bulb moments, any ahas, things that were, again, unexpected, or how did being a lead for you first time work out?
To me, the most of the aha moments were basically because I made so many mistakes. I did so many things wrong, and the aha moments were basically after making a mistake, like taking a huge 700 frame shot while I had like 3 sequences I was leading. So when do you do that, and how do you focus on making the shot the best they can be? Well, so most of it was about the aha moments were for me as a lead. To know to take less and take less on and animate smaller shots and take breaks creatively, because you can't burn yourself out as an artist and also give the support you need as a lead.
Gotcha.
You can't do both. So when I took that on to my next lead gig, which was 2 years after at Braun, I really took that to heart. So I took a lot less shots, and I really tried to focus on the shots for the team and helping the team out, and really give the focus they needed. And if I had time, I took some work for myself. But
gotcha.
Yeah, basically,
that's great.
Being less greedy.
Yeah. As I say, you can't do it all. I love this quote from a gentleman, Thomas Sowell. He said, "There are no solutions. There's only trade-offs." So you've got to figure one way out the other. If I take on too much, the trade-off is I can't get it all done very well or something,
Great quote.
Yeah. So you got to figure something out there. And that's great though. And I love that, because you're saying kind of what's best for the team, what's best for the project, and to be able to do that well. That's great.
Yeah, for sure.
And then that was the last film there. Did you work on any of the stuff they did for Netflix? Or did you head out from?
No, just before the end of Ballerina, I got a call from Blue Sky, and I was offered to come down to work on their latest and now apparently last Ice Age movie.
Right.
And that was, to me, that was pretty insane to me, because I always loved Blue Sky. Their films, the level of animation was mind blowing, and it was one of my dreams to get to a point where I'm able to animate for them.
Right.
So it was a no-brainer. I went down there, and I was lucky enough to be there on 2 films.
Very cool.
So
that's a hugely talented team there. Definitely a shame as what's happened here. I'm sure a lot of them will get picked up quickly and move on to other studios and be an asset there. But yeah, definitely a talented crew there.
No doubt.
Some of the
best in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah. again, what did you learn during your time there? What were some of the, you mentioned just an opportunity to work there. What were some of the key things there that you've taken now for your career?
The biggest thing I took from being at Blue Sky for 2 years was design, I think.
How so?
Design and animation. Up until then, I felt like I moved things around based on, reference and thumbnails and ideas of what nice fluid motion looks like. But there's so much more thought in designing the pose, designing
Okay.
the peel, designing the curves, straights, and everything in between. And
Nice.
taking that was one thing. And then the second thing, which was the bigger thing for me personally, was to slow down
Okay.
as an animator.
Okay, let me ask you this then, and I'll have you explain that then. How do you do that while having deadlines?
You have to, I think in a way it works itself out, because when you slow down, you tend to be able to think about your choices more.
Okay.
You tend to have less rounds in the ring with the speech and the director, because you tend to hit the tone and the visual a bit better because you just think about it a little bit more.
Okay.
So in a way, at the beginning, it slows you down and you miss some deadlines, but in the long run, it makes your animation more solidified and gives you this extra, extra wind almost to be confident in every dailies, right? Because you thought about it.
Gotcha.
It's not a pose you just put up there and just handed it over.
Mm-hmm.
You really tried a pose and then tried another one and then tweaked it and then flipped and then went to lunch, come back, check it. Is it good enough? Can I push this a little bit more? And you do that a bunch of times and you start training your eye. And
Gotcha.
I had amazing mentors over there that really pushed me and helped me get out of the mode of just animating fast, because that was my thing when I was in Montreal. Just footage, just make feature quality footage as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great to look at it from another perspective.
Now, did being at a bigger studio with more funding afford that, or was it just more of a different? Can that translate outside of that as well? Let me ask you that.
It absolutely can.
Okay.
Absolutely. I didn't feel like I had like an abundance of time on any.
Gotcha. It'd just be more strategic, more methodical, better planning.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. It was also, to me, a bit of a chance to take in some regards, a breather, because I didn't have to look at other people's shot and help them out or go to a lot of meetings. I was just able to sit down and animate. So in that regard, I was still, hitting those deadlines with the ability of spending a bit more time on it. So maybe, it's like working out, and then you go and you do everything faster because, your muscles are kind of pumped. But it was really, again, the biggest thing that I've learned was to really think about posing, to really think about how to make the character look the best they could with the, clearest view of what the shot needs to be.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any particular, you mentioned mentors there for you, that any particular ones that were kind of standouts for you? Maybe even what a short time, but I caught something that he or she said.
There is too many.
Okay. I like that.
I don't want to miss any names, but
okay. That's what I say. I'm thinking I like that because it's safe and probably true. So
it is. I at the time was there, and I'm sure after as well, there weren't really people who didn't belong there. They all were amazing animators, all better than me, and I was very lucky to be there and just kind of absorb like a sponge as much as I could.
Very neat. So now you mentioned you worked on 2 projects there. That was Ice Age. What was it?
5.
Okay, 5. That's the best way to remember it.
Okay. Yeah. So that was a fun experience on its own. I think, some people were there from, the animated on the first and second
Right.
night. So to them, it was like, yeah, all right, then let's do another one. But for me, it was like, can I animate Scrat, please?
Yeah. Was there
So
any adjustment with the style from your previous projects that you've worked on?
huge, because it
Okay.
was it was it was really the first time I worked on a Cartoony show.
Okay.
So again, lots of tutoring from a lot of very amazing people over there, trying to really explain to me what Cartoony really means, because to me at the time, Cartoony was just faster,
Right.
just move faster and then hold frames longer. uh, and that really wasn't the entire picture, right? It's a lot of it is about making things clearer, and again, and the design of the pose, and making the choices still somewhat grounded, but also pushed.
Gotcha.
Right, and to me, it was looking at shots, just opening old shots from other movies, and when you're at a big studio, you can dig in and kind of find shots from years back and just look at specific animators you really like, and study it. I didn't get to the point where I opened shots, but I definitely did my studying on other people's.
Very cool. Very cool. And then from that one, you went to Ferdinand, which is the poster I see behind you, right?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
Ferdinand was, it was a huge lift for me. It was the
How
first.
so?
It was a quadruped movie.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Yeah, yeah.
and other than a few wolves, I had awkwardly jumping in one of the VFX shows I worked on years before. I really didn't have any experience with animating quadrupeds, not to mention, cartoony performance on top of it, or believable performance on top of it. So that was quite the challenge, and it was scary, but it was amazing to be able to get my brain around it, so I can actually take on more and more shots and be comfortable with it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Was there anything, as we have artists that listen to this podcast, was there anything that helped you get up to speed on stuff like that you would go, hey, look, if I can give you any advice jumping into new shots, whether it be flight or quadruped or something like that, this is what I'd recommend?
Well, we all had a huge amount of data to look at in terms of like the libraries we were able to watch, and a lot of guys went to farms and shot bulls, and gave us a lot of footage to go through for reference.
Gotcha.
However, I found that myself and a lot of other animators relied mostly on the performance first and then the mechanics later.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because at the end of the day, it was still a cartoonier show,
Right.
and you really wanted to have the the center of gravity, the COG, the chest, the neck, the head, really deliver these lines in a believable way with the certain tone. And what the legs did under it just needed to be believable enough. So a lot of the times, what I've learned, and the way I've carried myself almost throughout the show, was to animate the torso, which is kind of this way, right, for quadrupeds, with the head and neck, get to the point where you have really solid blocking, delivering the tone of the shot with like super basic dialogue, and then start figuring out, you kind of counter animate the footfalls and make the legs work.
Gotcha.
Because at the end of the day, it is about those energy moves and those weight shifts. And if you force them in the body, you can make the legs kind of work for you later. But if you just decide on the footfalls and steps and stops and all that stuff with everything visible, to me, it was just it became a knot of just too much information.
Gotcha.
You really couldn't make clean and appealing animation out of, for me.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. I think Mike Safionoff, he had really talented animator. He had posted, I think, some of his breakdown on Ferdinand.
Yep.
He had just the legs all invisible. You could just see the upper torso and just kind of walking. I think it was like smelling the flowers and kind of going
Yeah,
down a hallway. Yeah, something
yeah.
along that lines. And same thing, just how he kind of broke it down. It sounds very similar to what you're
Yeah, it is similar because I took a lot of notes from Mike and
Okay.
Mike. But yeah, that's really if the focus of the shot is the performance, then that's the thing that needs to be there from the beginning.
Gotcha.
Right. And the walking can, sort itself out later. It's
Gotcha.
almost like animating a biped, a human being, and you're not seeing the legs. You're going to animate the footfalls basically, not to a polished level because you don't see them.
Right.
But it's not what really matters. What really matters is the feel of the weight shifts and when the accents happen. So it's the same idea.
Very cool. That's fantastic, man. And then so Blue Sky brought you to, let's see, Braun. Okay. And just a FYI, we actually had a podcast with Wes Mandel.
All right.
Yeah, on the Willoughbys. Really cool guy. Great podcast. Definitely check that one out too, audience. I'll try to leave that in the show notes as well. But Willoughbys, very, very fun, unique, different, but a fun show. So tell us about your time on that one.
So Willoughbys was my my way back into becoming a lead on a feature, and I tried to implement a lot of the stuff that I talked before about the stuff that I did wrong in my first gig. So I took a lot less shots and focused a lot more on the team, and I tried this. Another thing that I learned at Blue Sky from a lot of talented friends are drawing over your shots. It's just a great tool to have, and because I always drew, and I never in my mind I was never able to combine that path of illustration with the path of animation. It was always like, this is in the computer, this is on paper.
Gotcha.
In Photoshop. So to me, that was a great opportunity to take people's shots, take my team's shots, and help out by drawing over. Instead of just going into Maya or giving them verbal feedback, I was taking shots and pushing the appeal, pushing clarity, and that became the thing that I did for most of the show. So that was really, really fun, and I learned a lot from it myself, just getting better at
giving feedback and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe it's just me. I'm a very visual learner, but it would seem like most of the people in our industry are probably somewhat similar, I'd imagine, because we're in a visual type medium and kind of that same type of maybe personality to a certain degree. And so that would seem like that would be a huge advantage. I love, I work with my brother. He draws over and things of that nature. Just it's like, oh, okay, I see what you're talking about here, or it's much clearer. So it's neat to be able to see you pull from your childhood of drawing and pulling into a part where you're leading teams and be able to use that now.
Right. Somehow in my small brain, I wasn't able to make that connection before, because in art school, my illustration teachers always put like parchment paper on top of your drawing and kind of correction. It wasn't like it was a new idea. It was just, to me, a different industry. So I really never mixed the two together.
Gotcha.
Never again. Now I know. Yeah.
Now, the team there at Braun, was it much bigger than the one you had at L'Atelier when you were leading?
Not at all. I think it was actually a bit smaller.
Really? Okay.
I think so. It was relatively
comparable, huh?
Relatively similar. So in the 30-ish number.
Okay. Well, that's actually a decent sized crew then.
Yeah, I think L'Atelier we had about. No, maybe you're right. L'Atelier we had about 28.
Okay.
32. It changes over the course of the film, and then for Willoughbys we had, again, between 26 and 30. It depends on when in the film you're talking. But yeah, super fun production.
Yeah.
Very talented animators. Chris Pern, the director, is a force of nature. You can tell by watching the film, and you can see his fingerprints all over, the first cloud he was head of story. Remarkable director. And yeah, it was tremendous fun to work on.
Yeah, and just my personality, I love quirky. One of my favorite all-time shows growing up, and then even on Netflix, is MST3K, Mystery Science Theater 3000. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Any of our fans out there? Um,
Never watched it, but
okay. Basically, what they do is they take old cheesy movies and they ad lib over it. And so it's hilarious. But my point of being is I love that quirkiness. So you talk about the first Cloudy, it's one of my favorites. And then this Willoughbys was very much in that same vein where it's just that quirky, weird, kind of funny. And so, yeah, I could see where that would be a lot of fun to work on. It looked like too, then you're able to take a lot of the cartoony stuff that you learned from Blue Sky into that same vein in regards to timing and things like that.
Right. Especially, timing and push poses and I've never worked on film that used twos in the same way. Everything was spline before in my experience, but that was it was a lot of fun to try and make things work smoothly and gracefully on twos. It was great. It was again another new challenge, but to me that's what's fun about this industry, where you don't know what the next film is going to give you in terms of a challenge. Just means something cool and new that's going to be a little bit difficult, but you don't want the same over and over again.
Right. Anything in particular you learned on working with twos? Stuff you can kind of maybe cheat as far as timing wise. I can get this kind, I can get more footage in during this time. Or did you find that in other stuff you go, hey, I'd be able to kind of do something here in polish and spline that I'm not able to do here on these twos because it just doesn't look the same?
Well, the surprising thing is it's like a fish in a bowl, right? It just grows to the size of the bowl. At the end of the day, you spend the same amount of time on the shot because twos, you just need to know a lot. You need to plan a lot better your eases, right? And your timing, and you need to work your posing better because you can't really hide anything. And you can hide things in motion, but not in posing. So at the end of the day, it was almost the same amount of time we spent on it. And the designs were hilarious and amazing, but super hard to animate, especially believable performance. We had characters that were basically, they were Q-tips. They have super long necks, almost no shoulders. You can't do any of this or anything. Anything that really you need to be able to utilize to show some contrast and to show any change in direction or angle will give you a bit of a different idea of tone. You couldn't do any of that.
Gotcha.
They were like balloons on a string. So yeah, it was all those challenges basically even out to the fact that you don't need to spline something. At the end of the day, it's just, quota is kind of the same.
Like we got good news and bad news. Good news is we're going to be on two, so you might have a little more time here, but then we're going to take it by giving you these characters that look like balloons on a string. So
exactly. But I think it worked out nicely at the end of the day.
Yeah, very, very cute, and like I said, unique. I love that. So now, was that the only project you worked on there at Braun?
I did help a little bit on a previous film they worked on. I came on to help out doing some retakes. But yeah, most of the time at Braun was spent on that. And then after Willoughbys wrapped, I stayed at Braun for a little bit longer doing character design.
Okay.
Which is something I've been doing throughout the years. Mostly for myself, but also for side projects and something that I was pushing along with, the animation skills because I wanted to do my own things, and I wanted to be able to control the look of films that I wanted to make. So that was always something that I wanted to do. Braun gave me the opportunity to actually, design a lot of characters on a show they're working on right now. So that's
awesome.
That's great. Yeah.
So animator, writer, director, character designer, you're wearing a lot of hats.
Well, all of the above are, just the starting point. Right now, I'm a noob. I'm learning how to do all these things, and it's just I'm extremely hungry, and I want to kind of taste everything. And to me, character design and writing, directing, and animating is all giving me different types of thrills and feedback. So to me, it's making my own film at the end of the day is kind of a culmination of everything. So without knowing, my gut kind of led me to start making my own things on the side, and yeah, I've been doing that for the past 4+ years, developing things and kind of pushing stuff.
That's awesome. Well, I think it's a nice segue then. Let's talk about your short. Too Late? Is that was the name of it?
Yeah.
Okay. As I was talking with you about it beforehand, I hadn't seen any trailer. I think I talked with you at CTN, which I desperately missed. That was a wonderful. This was really cool, man, to be able to talk with you again. For those that are listening here, CTN is just an awesome show where people from around the world that we get to interact with it's an annual time to see each other face to face. So this is really cool. I really appreciate again your time on this because it's been neat to be able to talk with you. I missed that face to face one, but this will have to do. But yeah, CTN is when I talked with you about your project Too Late,
Right.
and I didn't see anything of it other than the flyer that you'd given me. And when I first watched it, I was like, "Whoa, this is different." It was a little not darker, but what would be the word you'd kind of use for that? Suspenseful. I think that's a good one.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a thriller.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. You don't necessarily expect from animation.
Yeah. And I had no idea it was a thriller. So all of a sudden it just kind of caught me by surprise there. But really, really nicely done, both in the animation, the story and pacing, some really thriller shots and in there that kind of took me back. But the lighting, the compositing, just really top notch. How did you pull that together there?
Amazing people. It's again, like what I said about Blue Sky and L'Atelier and Braun. It's just surrounding yourself with good, talented people is the only way to go in animation, in life in general, but animation specifically, because it's so complex. There's so many moving parts. You need to be able to trust a lot of people that know what they're doing to help you make this. It's like building a huge ocean liner. There's so much to do. You can't do it all yourself. So I did wear a lot of hats, but at the end of the day, most of the hands-on stuff were just people giving from their time. So a lot of the people that I met over the years and worked with over the years and good friends of mine, I kind of collected and were kind enough to lend me of their personal time to work on this thing.
I did notice quite a few names in there from iAnimate as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Where is it here? I have it somewhere. Robbie Rayo was in there. Mabel Tan, Lorenzo, and I can't pronounce his last name. Do you know what I'm talking about? What is it?
I'm gonna butcher it.
I can't. I'm gonna probably butcher it. Kimberly Allen, India, Barndano, and then Martin Smith as well. So yeah, a lot of people from iAnimate I noticed were on there, which is really just cool. That connection during that time.
Absolutely. And yeah, it was a no-brainer. Bringing friends over was a no-brainer. It was a bigger question for people, volunteering from their time, because at the end of the day, you are committing to, to something that you don't know when is going to be finished and what it's going to do, how it's going to look. There was a lot of trust that people put in me, and I'm forever grateful. At the end of the day, it was a short film that I chose the simplest. Like I had a few stories. I chose the simplest, smallest that I had, because I really wanted to do this relatively quickly, so I'm able to get better and do more and more and more and more and more. It took longer than I expected. Mostly because I ended up moving in the middle and doing a lot of work at work, and had a kid in the middle of this as well. So at the end of the day, it took a bit longer, but I'm super thrilled about the end result, and yeah, now I'm working on my second one. So
Awesome. Now,
that's
this being kind of your own independent, how did you come up with the pipeline, with the workflow, asset management, things of that nature? How did you develop that?
learn on the go.
Okay.
You
Anything
know,
particular you used?
well, Google Drive was basically our pipeline,
Okay.
which is you know, the only way at the time I knew how to even transfer information between people and the ability to sync so everybody can get their own shot
Yeah.
and have assets updated when they, when they open the shot, and make sure the references are up to date. Um, Again, it wasn't built for that. So we had a lot of technical issues along the way. Um, at the end of the day, because the core group was so small, we were about 8 to 10 people. Everybody was really hands-on
I was gonna
figuring
say, keeps
things
it
out.
pretty nimble, huh?
We had to. At the end of the day, there were about 40 people that helped out on the shore.
Wow. Okay.
So most people had time to, do one asset or one texture or animate one shot, and anything people were willing to help with was amazing, and we're grateful. But the core crew was much smaller, and those are people that were in there for the long run. And yeah, the way we worked on it was in a way similar to L'Atelier, where a lot of the titles we took, the hats we wore something that we didn't do at our day job, or haven't had the chance to kind of prove ourselves in. So I didn't direct anything beforehand. And
Gotcha.
so I did that. And then a friend of mine who's a concept artist, the amazing Pierre McGowan, it was his first gig as a full-on production designer, and he did brilliantly with the film. It looks amazing.
You had some really cool special effects in there too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's mind-blowing. We had our lead effects artist Han Yang was doing amazing work with very little time, and yeah, like. Well, fifth time we mentioned his name again, Martin Smith, who edited the whole thing.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that was a huge commitment as well, because that was a good few years of putting putting time aside to making this thing really kind of click together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it worked out at the end. It was
Now,
hard.
what was the genesis of this? Where did the story come from?
Story came from it started off at art school, where to make a living I had to work night shifts. So I ended up being I was at a call center in Jerusalem, and I couldn't sleep because phone calls come in through the night, and you're not supposed to sleep. You're supposed to do this and then go to sleep.
Right.
But I was in art school, so I had to wake up. I had to check out at the end of the shift and then go to school for the whole day to kind of defend your work on the wall. And it broke me in so many ways. And you learn a lot about yourself and your limitations, and your psyche and your physical well-being, and I took a lot from it moving forward. And one part of it was seeing things repeat again and again. And that was when I was in working in commercials. I did a lot of 24-hour shifts, for instance, crazy stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then working in visual effects, and having close people to me, doing like dailies at 2 a.m. Crazy stuff. The lack of work-life balance is jarring to me in a lot of the industries that I've seen, and it was something that I felt I cared enough about to spend a good chunk of time on, to make a short subject film about.
Yeah. Definitely something I think we can all kind of relate to for sure, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How did you? I know you had it on some festivals and things of that nature. How was it received?
It was it surprised us all. We sent it to a couple festivals, and then it started getting accepted. So we sent it to some more and some more and some more. It's been over 40 festivals so far.
Wow.
And it won a bunch of awards, which we're really grateful for.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. It's really mind blowing. And I think, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe some people connect with this reality, this question. But at the end of the day, it's still a super simple idea, super simple and short film about somebody trying to go home, and maybe that's why people connected with it.
Yeah, yeah. Just, as you mentioned, even being a student getting up, or for iAnimate, I have to get up, and there's times when we just need to do that. And like you said, at some point, though, there's got to be that work-life balance as well. So I think, like I said, just at some point, all of us have been in situations where we've had to grind and put in the extra time. So yeah, definitely something I think we can relate to. So.
Right. And the irony is not missed on me that, we did this film in overtime, basically. Because everybody on the film, we didn't have any students, or barely any students working on the film. Everybody was, a professional, spending the whole day at work, and then, in the evening or weekend, gave them their time to work.
Right.
It's kind of like, it's kind of a hard truth to accept, but it was part of it. Yeah.
Now, you did mention that there was quite a few people on this, and some would handle a asset. Did you find that having a larger pool made it easier? Where I guess the workload's kind of spread a little more thin. Did you find that worked out well for the artist, but maybe made a little bit more difficult for you to find more artists?
It was the most difficult thing for me was in both animation and lighting. Everything before that, we managed with a smaller team. Once we started animation, we needed more people.
Right.
And it's really hard to find people that have time to work on a short with no finance, and it's not everybody's cup of tea. It's still a thriller. It's still a little bit darker. It was challenging, and we had to start. A lot of the times people really want to be part of it and start a shot, but then they can't finish it because they hit overtime at work, so
Right.
they can't do it anymore. So you have to move shots around a lot. But we had to stay flexible and come up with creative solutions, because at the end of the day, that's around 80 shots, I think, in the film.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's a great length, particularly for an independent short.
Yeah, well, that was the point. Like I was thinking of how long am I going to be okay with watching myself, and 5 minutes is kind of the bracket where we feel confident that let's watch this. It's 5 minutes. It's something psychological about the fact that it's only 5 minutes. Anything beyond that feels a little bit more demanding sometimes for me. But having said that, my next film is probably going to be longer. So you need to,
You built up your reputation with this one, though, so people will check it out.
Hopefully, yeah, hope so.
Do you have any ETA or wish list on when you want to get this next one out?
Next one is going to be a bit different. I am in the midst of searching for investors or funding, or working within the studio system to produce it. And,
Gotcha.
I have some kind of interested parties possibly trying to make this work. So if that's the case, then the turnaround time should be much quicker.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. I'm not going to be able to do this in the same way again, and I'm not going to ask people that have given for their time on too late in particular to do this again without having some sort of compensation. It has to be something that's valid, especially considering the second film is going to be bigger and everything is going to be more challenging and longer, and with all the stuff that I've learned from the first one, implementing into the second one, it's a heavier lift.
Gotcha.
You really need to be able to have like a proper production running for that one.
Very nice. All right. And then to kind of finish off here, I know you're at Cinesite right now, right?
Yep. I am.
So it's just kind of, you with Jason Ryan, I'm assuming at that, their feature?
No, I'm in Vancouver. So
Okay.
He's in Montreal.
Yes.
I'm in Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's all part of the same big company.
Right. So yeah, it's just kind of funny. Here you are, kind of full circle. Here you are working with Jason.
Right. Yeah. it's so strange, isn't it? It was even at the beginning of my journey when I started working with people that were part of films that I love so much, like Lilo and Stitch and DreamWorks stuff. It's weird, but it's really great.
That's awesome. Which one are you working on right now? Are you able to talk about it?
We're finishing off the sequel to the Addams Family right now.
Okay. All right. Did you work on Extinct at all?
On what? Sorry.
Was it Extinct?
No.
Okay.
I started. I started with this film.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything different from this film versus the last one as far as quality, or because the last one actually seemed like it did pretty well?
It did very well.
Yeah.
I think the quality push on all levels is absolutely going to be there. They hired a head of animation that I worked with at Blue Sky. That's an awesome guy.
Very nice.
Who's really pushing the quality on all fronts. It's a bigger, better, faster, everything. Like what you want from a sequel.
Yeah. And now your title there is a lead as well, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. This is your third time leading ish, because anything different on this project? I know each studio has their own DNA and how they run things, or different artists that you may be working with. Anything different that you've having to adapt here being a lead?
The style of leadership here resembles more of what I knew from Blue Sky.
Okay.
With, again, lots of drovers, but because the film is somewhere between the naturalistic and cartoony, it leans a little bit back towards what Blue Sky was like in a way of how you follow shot along from blocking to polish.
Gotcha.
So very similar. Other than that, it's just a very challenging film with very strange and different characters. So it's like I said, every film is a challenge on its own, unless you're doing. But even if you're doing a sequel, right? Because on Ice Age and both this one, you come onto a franchise,
right?
And you really need to hit the ground running, knowing how these characters act and move, and that's a challenge on its own.
Right? You're building off of that now,
right? You can't drop the ball. You need to know how does that character walk from side to side, what type of arm gestures they use, and what's too much on their facial expressions. That's well known to half the team that worked on the previous film, but
right.
So there's always a challenge.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Roy, we really appreciate your time on this. This is great getting to catch up with you. And I'm sure for our audience to hear from somebody who has been through some of the trenches here, from, iAnimate to Green to now having worked on multiple feature animated films. It's just, and directing and your own short. It's just a really neat opportunity to get to talk with you. So really appreciate your time. Best of luck. I'm sure we'll get you in again on another time when we.
I love that. I love that.
One of your new.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really good.
Absolutely. All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're out.